that guy?
Yeah, 6 months.
All right. After a few weeks hiatus, we're back on rigging.
Oh, yes.
Hey, shut up!
Yeah, shut up.
Professor Clark is talking.
Respect me. After a couple of weeks off, we're back on rigging. We're just gonna kind of rehash a couple of things we went over, as in like the porter wrap and slings stuff. So, what are the 3 different types of slings that we mostly use to, say, attach a porter wrap on there? This one starts with a L. It's a loopy, and then we got the and then like this one would be a dead eye. Very good. What is like the strengths of a whoopee and a loopy string compared to a dead eye?
You don't have to tie knots.
Don't have to tie knots. Fast, smooth, efficient. Yeah, all this stuff. Today we're going to be kind of like applying the porter wrap in a actual rigging situation with this very big wood here. Yeah, so if you're tying off a piece like that, get off my job site. So if you were to be holding a piece like this with the porter wrap, how many wraps would you guys be putting on it? Exactly. Don't be using a fucking porter wrap for this. But say it was a little bit heavier, then how much would we be doing? We call it just going around the horn, half wrap. So just around the horn is a half wrap. Bring it back through. That's a full wrap. 1.5, 2 wraps. Pretty self-explanatory on that note. So in a rigging situation where it's just straight from the porter wrap up to a block down to the piece, how much force is this one point experiencing in a situation like this? If this thing weighed 50 pounds, how much force is this thing holding?
50.
Correct, more or less. But how much is that point holding? 100, right? Think about it. Got 50 pounds here, 50 pounds to counteract that 50 pounds. So that point is now holding 100 pounds. So in your mind, if you're rigging off something big, straight up, straight down, you got to realize that that rigging point up there is actually going to be experiencing twice as much force as what it weighs. So then, in doing that, we kind of come up with some different plans to spread that force throughout a tree. And that's what we're going to be getting into with, it's called vector forces. It's kind of the definition of an angle, defines how much force it will be experiencing. Kind of hard to see, but this little diagram here, you have your piece in the center and then different angles coming out of it. Kind of define a percentage that force will be multiplied by. That's kind of a shitty way of explaining it. So that's why us climbers and us people trying to set up rigging situations, we're looking for 45 degrees. That's like the magic number. Anything 90, you're putting more force on that point than is necessary. Obtuse angles with a point in the middle, you have to imagine it's like pulling in rather than pulling down. It's like, here, you hold that, stand up, and then we'll both kind of weight it. Linda, if you want to pull in the middle, she's definitely not stronger than 2 guys, but with one hand, she's able to pull 400, 500 pounds together. So that just kind of shows how much force that can be multiplied through just a matter of angles and all that fun stuff. And in doing so, that kind of goes into the natural shape and biomechanics of a tree, right? Because you can imagine a branch is going out. If you wail on a branch down, branch breaks. But if you take two branches and pull them together, you have a lot more play, a lot more resonant dampening. I'm not sure if that is exactly resonant dampening, but you have the biomechanics of the tree are much friendlier getting pulled in rather than getting pulled down. So in a tree like this, we have a block down here, ground guy's ready to go, climber's way up there. He's ran his main line up the main stem, ideally, to kind of give him one main working line. And then if he ran it all the way out to just this one block, say he negative rigged this out, well, that's kind of a 90-degree angle there, right? So straight up, straight out. If we look on our fun little chart here, a 90-degree angle is giving us 574% increase, which doesn't sound quite right. I would, in my mind, I more or less just kind of doubles it. 200%, which is a lot of force. Say that piece weighed 1,000 pounds, now it weighs 2,000 pounds. You factor in a fall percentage into that 1,000 pounds can quickly become 6, 7, 8,000 pounds, depending on how far it's falling and how rough it's getting caught. So if that was a sketchy tree, I would be very concerned about sending 8,000 pounds on that. So then what we could do is, instead of running it straight hard to the right there, run it up to that pulley up there, go back to our chart. It's kind of a 45, so it's about 100%. So that's makes managing these inconsistent weights a little easier. When you can send 1,000 pound logs, you know what a 1,000-pound log looks like. But as soon as you start doing weird shit with it, 1,000 pounds can become 4,000 pounds. Really, really fast. And then same with those vector points, kind of plays into something a lot of us do, span rigging. Which is when you're kind of sharing the weight of an object between 2 points on a tree. I don't really know how to set it up from the ground right now, but say oh, I guess yeah. Oh, and I get to use the new Sequoia. Let's see. Gotta give you guys a little show.
But I didn't see you do it again.
Now you guys better start paying up. Oh, there's a spider. Ah. Ah, yes, the saddle of spiders. Oh, and the new zigzag. All right. Could somebody unlock that off?
Yeah, right?
Like that wood hanging between your legs.
Tripod.
Call me Teddy. All right. So before we get into span rigging, to show the angles in actuality. Very clearly a 90 degree. If this was a tree, a natural tree, you could see the weight would go up, go over, go straight down. So going into like the biomechanics of it, rather than this tree getting pulled in, that lead is still getting ripped down as soon as I send this out or send out a piece. But if I was to change that angle from down there up to here, you can see how that's a little bit more of a friendly 45, which is what we're looking for. So now in span rigging, if we were to say that's our main line going up, going over to here, we've locked this off. And now we kind of create a V in the line, and we imagine that our piece is tied in the middle. So if we put a 100-pound piece in the middle of this line, and it was locked off over here, this was our working end, with the 100 pounds in the middle, how much would each side be experiencing, more or less? 50, right? Because we are locking off 50 pounds over there. We're managing 50 pounds over here. So that just makes it a lot easier to kind of spread that force between 2 points. Just lowers the amount of force a single point is holding. So for like sketchy trees, small trees, you really don't want to be whaling a couple thousand pounds on one force or on one point. Spread it out. And then also kind of gives your ground guys more ability to manage that load, because instead of muscling around 100 pounds, they're only muscling around 50 pounds. Makes using like a GRCS 5-to-1 a lot easier. The only thing to kind of note in a span rigging situation is when that piece comes off, it is going to favor your termination side every time. I don't know exactly why that happens, but it happens. I think it's something to do with like the angles of this compared to like a piece that's being locked off, kind of wider at your pulleys rather than your termination side. That might just be a part of it. There might be a couple things that play into it. I honestly not entirely sure. And in doing this, it also gives you a slight level of mechanical advantage, because now I can pull on this. I'm only pulling up 25 pounds if this was a 50-pound thing. So if you were to crank a piece up, you're getting some level of mechanical advantage just from setting that up as a span rig rather than a single line. And I guess I can show how it would favor the termination side as soon as you like weight it. See how it kind of swings down there rather than equalizing exactly in the middle. I'm not entirely sure why. I remember my first couple times setting up a span rig, I always, in my brain, imagined it going right down the middle of the 2 points, and then that just would never happen. Span rigs are awesome. They're super, if there's kind of a tricky rigging situation and you're not entirely sure how to get a piece to land closer to where you want it, span rigs are awesome. They give your ground guys much more ability to manipulate a piece. They spread that force out. They're really good at making dynamic loads a lot more static as well. But then you also have to count, factor in those vector forces that we were talking about, right? Because as these angles grow wider, like this is kind of a sharper angle here. As that piece gets lowered, that angle is going to keep getting sharper and sharper, kind of pulling those towards in. And then you're going to get a kind of a gnarlier bend ratio down there, which I'm sure Kevin kind of talked about a little bit when I was gone. And canyon of ropes kind of are stronger getting pulled right rather than getting bent. So as that piece is getting lower, you're going to be putting a bit more pressure on that rope as those angles become quite a bit more intense. And then also, like when you're using it for like a lifting maneuver, you also have to realize that those 2 points that you're going to be cranking on towards that center point they're going to be getting quite a bit of force. So kind of playing into the tree biomechanics of trees like to get pulled in rather than down. Kind of think about that, because if you have like a point and a point overhanging this, they're going to be getting cranked down a bunch. Potential for failure. I'm not sure exactly where to go from there.
What's next on your slide you'll make?
I don't know. It's been a while since I made that fucking thing. I guess just how we exactly would be using the porter wrap in like a span rigging or a less. Yes. Why do we use a ring rather than a pulley in some situations, or vice versa? What would you use a ring for rather than a pulley?
Like for rigging,
Yeah.
a piece like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pulley is like to let it run down, and I would say like a ring, a little bit more friction, control a little bit more.
Yeah, more or less, right? So a ring doesn't have the sheath that rolls around, obviously, so you're getting a lot more friction in a ring rather than a pulley. So in a situation where, say, we were lifting this piece up with a 5-to-1 and then locking it off with the porter wrap, we probably wouldn't want to be using a ring right there, right? Because we're going to be fighting ourselves and our gear to lift this piece up. Because it's all on 2 pulleys right now, it's really easy to pull this thing up. There's no friction. We have a slight mechanical advantage, and it's not a very heavy piece. But if I were to throw a ring up there, now I'm fighting the friction of that ring and this angle off of that ring. So if you are doing situations where you want a lot more control with a piece and you want to know exactly how much weight you're experiencing rather than sharing that friction throughout different pieces, you're gonna want to be using pulleys, rather than rings. However, a nice, beautiful, fresh pulley like that, you don't want to beat the shit out of. So in like a negative rigging situation where you're potentially double blocking it, there's a chance of that thing getting smacked against the trunk. You might want to set it up on a ring or something. Those things are a lot more tolerable to getting the shit beat out of them than a nice, beautiful ring, especially like an omni block like that. However, that friction, as in most things, is kind of a friend and will help you out a lot. So if you're not rigging super big and maybe shit happens, you don't have a porta wrap or something, you might be using rings to kind of add some friction to that system to help your ground guys out. As well as like sharing friction between 3 or 4 points is much better than loading it all on one, especially if you got kind of a lot going on, got different situations going on. It's kind of like you can imagine how a ring would function differently than a pulley, right? There's no sort of like mechanical aspect to it. It's just literally a ring to hold a rope. But then going from that, we're gonna kind of talk about like how using a porta wrap in these less common situations. So if we were to set up a span rig like this and we wanted to crank this thing up with like a 5-to-1 and then lock it off with a porta wrap, it's pretty simple to do. Like you would have that ring that comes off of that porta wrap, attach your 5-to-1, or you're spreading it out on the ground. Cranking that thing up, this is usually kind of a 2-guy operation. Put it through a doohickey. And then wrap it down. It's a minimum of 5 wraps. And then half hitch around the horn. Now this piece is floating, maintained on this porta wrap. From there, maybe we had a tagline on it or something. You could start pulling that thing out and then lowering it down slowly. But then how we are typically using a porta wrap in this situation is we're letting that motherfucker run, right? So like I was saying, since it's a span rig and we're sharing the force between that point, this point, and then down to here, this thing's only experiencing maybe half. You factor in some friction in there, really not much. So don't see a giant piece getting tied off on a span rig and load this thing up with 3 wraps because it's gonna not go anywhere. It's just gonna get locked off. As I've said with most things, the horn will get you very far. Most of the stuff we're rigging out is not that big. I'd much rather have control of the piece and be able to maneuver it up and down, or rather just down, than locking that thing off. Usually swings right into another crotch below it, stuck, and it's really, really frustrating. So typically, like say this was, I don't know, 800-pound piece, I'd just be going through the horn. As you're getting ready to run said ropes, depending on what you and your foreman have talked about, you kind of have a game. You guys are both on the same page of the ideal path of that piece, the ideal landing, how far to let it run to maybe clear obstacles in the tree, such as unions, the climber themselves, gear, and then your obvious hazards on the ground, houses, billion-dollar car that for some reason won't move, child. So I recommend kind of, you don't have to be cranked on that thing, you know, as it's going, you're like, oh God, lock it off, and it stops instantly. It's kind of like if any of you guys rock climb, belaying somebody, you don't keep them tight because they're moving around and stuff. If you keep them really tight and they're going to pull up their rope, you're just locking them off. Everybody's pissed off. So when we were taught to belay, you kind of keep crescents in your ropes, which you can see here. So like if I'm running a rope, I kind of keep a little bit of slack in it, because as that piece is going, I'll be able to see physically right in front of me, it's starting to catch because it gets tighter. As that piece is maneuvering down, maybe throw it out a little bit more to kind of let it run away from your climber. So don't always, it's good for most pieces, you know, right, to kind of crank up some pre-tension on it, lock it down and stuff. But once it's there, that tension is pretty much caught in that system. So now on your working end, having a little bit of play in it gives you a lot more control over that piece. Lets you see on the ground how it's catching that weight rather than looking up at the piece, getting it locked off, thinking that it's going to go, and then it just whomp, straight at the climber's legs, straight at a union or whatever it might be. And then you also have to factor in like how far that thing is falling. If it's a 50, 60-foot tree and you're sending a 10-foot top out of it or something, you have 40, 50 feet to work with of just clean open air until it gets down to like where you got to kind of maneuver that piece. And in that whole time, you can be converting that mechanical force of it falling into friction. So having that little finite control, that possibly from doing less wraps more than more, so just going around the horn or something, you have 40, 50 feet to slow that thing down with that, because you can, even around a horn, you can lock it off real quick. So if you have 40, 50 feet to let that thing down and then kind of lock it off or control it, that's ideal, right? Because so much of that force that is just raining on those pieces, raining on the trees, you're just converting into heat right down there at the quarter wrap. And 40, 50 feet is kind of a long distance, right? So you can really change the excessive force that we're putting on these trees just by maximizing how much how much control you have over a piece like that. And then I guess this kind of goes pretty good into speed lining, because it is kind of a similar situation in a way. A span rig and a speed line, right? If you were to imagine that's the tree up there, this is the anchor point on the ground, you just have that piece floating in the middle. But in doing so, that puts a lot of those vector forces on the rope, on the pulleys, on the trees, on the gear on the ground. Right, because if this was 1,000 pounds floating in the middle now, speed lining down towards the ground, as soon as that thing's catching on there, both sides of this situation are experiencing 1,000 pounds. So you got to factor that in. Typically by speed lining, you're cutting pretty small, because you will feel that object catching that tree pretty hard. You could kind of negate that in like by doing a controlled speed line, where you kind of throw in some other gear into there to catch that initial force, and then control it down to wherever using the speed line aspect of it. That's the cool part about rigging, and I'm kind of trying to explain to you, is like so many random and different situations exist in tree care, and every tree is different. So having a knowledge base to set up these systems to counteract that potential danger, really important, because you could natural crotch everything. It's gonna suck, it's gonna take forever, it's very dangerous. so don't do it. But you could. But doing stuff like this makes everybody's day easier. Everybody's kind of having fun. One tree removal taking 3 people is fun, right? Everybody's involved in the whole process. There's not just some sad guy on the ground getting buried all day. Maybe he picks up a rope or something. Maybe. Just a quick thing about speed lining, which I have noticed. We're usually using something to like tension that speed line, right? GRCS, truck, mini skid or something. Teddy on a mini skid. Gotta kind of like factor in how much force even those things are gonna be putting on the trees, right? So if you're like on a skinny elm or something and you're speed lining stuff out and you're using like a mini skid to tension it or something, a mini skid is very much capable at blowing a lead out, especially like a truck or anything. So be careful how much tension you are putting on that line when setting up a speed line. It's like a nightmare for me to be seeing my tie-in just getting ripped out because we were speed lining off of a mini skid and somebody went too hard on it. But also, tension is essential because if you are speed lining off of a non-tension line, it just won't kind of straight to the ground. It's pretty lame. And that's kind of where like maybe the porta wrap isn't the best option for a speed line because it is kind of harder to get that tension consistently. Because usually you'd be setting up like a 5-to-1 off of it. 5-to-1s can be kind of clunky. It's just a lot of rope, a lot of distance. You're resetting it up. It's called a speed line because ideally it's fast. So if it's taking forever to tension up a line between every single piece that you're sending out of there, kind of defeats the purpose. Maybe you need to figure something else out. But luckily we work at a pretty cool place that gives us a lot of toys. So we have GRCSs, we have pulleys, we have trucks, mini skids, all that fun stuff. Figure out a good way to get it down. So yeah, you can kind of see this picture. It's your classic speed line operation, I guess. But that weight in the middle, you see, is pretty extreme. That vector force that we were kind of talking about. And that's actually all I have in this thing. I was trying to make a picture of Bry Guy, but I'm really not that good at technology.
If you're span rigging one point higher than the other, does that matter?
Yes. That lower point's going to be kind of catching force first, or is that reversed?
Peak loads change, so one side's going to have more of the load than the other.
Right. So like in your
The lower one's going to see less force
than the higher one, I just had that flopped. So like if you have a termination, your main rig point up here, and you're spanning down to something, you can imagine as that point, that force in the middle is caught, this higher point is going to be engaged first and be experiencing more load throughout that system. So as you, yeah, that one's kind of hard to explain without like drawing it out or something or showing you. Yeah, so we can back up there.
You just want to try the harness again.
Yeah, kind of.
If you want to use, there's the one right next to the remote. You can use the whiteboard.
Oh. Yeah, that'll be a lot quicker. All right.
Man, we can't see that, gang.
You remind me of E.T. You remind me of E.T. Aww. It's okay. E.T.'s cool. His name is.
I don't know who this is.
I know. His Arborist and all. He's all washed up. As far as everything.
Never said I was a drawer.
Did I 25?
Draw. How'd he do?
Drawer. I just met him. All right, beautiful drawing. You guys can't see it. Yeah.
It's art.
It's art. Here. Here. So yeah, like in your main stem of a tree, right? Your rig line's going to be going up. Usually you'd have something else coming out, and say you span all the way out to here, right? So you have up, out, and then you're tying off a piece in the middle. If this point is higher than your main system here, especially if it's a termination side, because like what I was saying about how it's already going to favor that termination side, as that piece is cut, it's going to kind of swing towards that higher termination side. And as that load shifts towards that one side, now that side is going to be experiencing more force than the other side, just because of the way that that's going to kind of gradually shift over there. And because it's higher, it's like, I don't know how to describe that. Like, if, yeah, it's the angles of it, right? So like as like a 45 to a 90 changes, so a 90 is like 200%, 45 is 100%. As that angle is kind of shifting towards whatever side, now that side is becoming a sharper angle, experiencing more force, rather than if they were both perfect 45s. As that shifts, you know, it's going to kind of start shifting more towards 90, while one side stays as the 45, which in turn will do that. So that is kind of something to keep in mind. It's not going to always be a perfect 50-50 between a termination side and a working end. Just as that load shifts around, those angles are going to start changing. And then you have friction in your system or something, like you might not realize that your rope is running on the tree at some point, right off of a pulley or something. That's going to vastly change how much friction and force you're experiencing on the ground. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the way to explain that. Any other questions?
Setting up like the speed line, like lock off points or like pulleys and rings, like
What knots? Something.
like I guess like where is it being locked off at? Well, because the person running the ground, like, they have to run rope.
Yeah, so like in a speed line operation, typically the climber is up on the tree and they are going to lock off their side. So they, in most like situations, you have a termination side and a working side, whether that's in just a classic rigging situation, you have your working end up, down, terminated. So you just kind of transfer that up into a tree. So the climber will terminate on his side, add a load to the system, and then run it down. Again, trying to find those good angles, like a speed line that's at a perfect 45 is going to function pretty good. If you can kind of lift that angle up, that's more ideal. So in that, like the knots that you would need to know and the gear you would need to know, it's dependent on what the foreman has and what is available to you. It's like something like a GRCS is awesome for like a speed line, because you can always be kind of cranking that thing, getting different kinds of tensions on it, or a vehicle. But in like a porter wrap situation, maybe we're rigging pretty small and it's just like something that you can kind of manually tension off. It's just going to be like setting up a porter wrap, typically like how you would if you were rigging out a huge piece and locking it off. Going to be cranking on it and then just do the 5 wraps, or even less, because as that piece is coming flying down, maybe you want to drop it right at the end. So it would just be kind of like rigging how you would normally do. If that thing's flying down at you and you have the control to just kind of lower it down right at the end, stop it. That's ideal. It's very important to like know how to tie a press even for that, because that 5-to-1, right, you're attaching that midline on this, typically with the press, running it down to the porter wrap and then locking it off. So it's situational in that regard, because I think we've done it before where we were just locking it off on the mini skid. Like they have those bollards on there that are really awesome. You can just do that, have complete control over the tension of it. Same thing with a truck, just throw a porter wrap on the truck. Now you can tension in it. And then you can also use it as that ability to like drop it right at the last second. It comes flying in there and you kind of have a specific landing zone you're looking for. Maybe you're just really good at what you do and you're getting all the butts to land perfectly flat and everything's awesome. So yeah, I mean that typically in some regards we're using a porter wrap to lock that off, like how you would lock off anything.
Can you show us how to lock off the porter?
Yeah. So, as you do, just around the horn. This one is a little different, but you're gonna be ramming on that thing, get it locked off. Typically when you have this first little half wrap on there, you can get quite a bit of pressure on that thing, especially if you do like a simultaneous motion, maybe even the thing Jacob likes where you like flick it, get that last little bit, and then you can lock it down. And then it's just a minimum of 5 wraps. And that's just like, if you're putting a ton of force on that thing and you put less than that, you're putting a lot of force on these little pins here, and they're not really built to be like bent. So if you were just like whamming on that thing, only got 3 wraps on there, then locked it off, there's a chance that you could break that off, and then you've kind of lost control of your load there. Minimum of 5, and then you just kind of take a little half hitch. So you make that little loopy there, down, and then do that second one for good luck. I think it's generally like good practice to do that bottom one first, and then do the top, because if you do like the top to the bottom one, this bottom one's not really getting weighted right. There's a chance for that to just kind of flick off of there. Then now you're just off the one. But you can imagine that 5 wraps is a lot of friction on this thing. That thing is probably not going anywhere. These little bollard pieces are not experiencing a whole lot of force. But in doing that, like if you are using a GRCS, especially like the GRs, like with the attachment to crank it, that thing's not built to get locked off, right? So that you have like the 2 attachments, you can kind of swap it out for a bollard piece. It's nice because you can crank it like that, but you just have to kind of realize that that's not the ideal use of that device. Because you can imagine that thing's pretty high tech, pretty fragile, like there's plastic elements to it, all that stuff. So if you're just whamming on that thing and it's locked off, it's going to be having some potential for failure in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How much weight for 1 wrap? Can 1 wrap hold?
I don't know if there's like an actual number to that.
On your rope's diameter too.
Yeah, so like this is a 1/2 inch line. It's much less surface area than this. if then compared to if you're using like a 3/4 inch line or something. So like,
Less rocks with a bigger rope.
right, so something like this, maybe I'm throwing 3 wraps on there because it's a pretty big piece. It's only a 1/2 inch line. I'm having less surface area than if I were to use 3 wraps on a 3/4 inch line. That's a lot of surface area because you can imagine that's a pretty fat rope taking up a lot of space. As far as like the weight specific, I don't know if there's like you can really calculate that accurately, just because it's pretty dependent on like the system that you're using, and then if you have friction in other ways. Because like remember what I was saying last time about how like friction is just converting that potential force into heat, which potential force is weight, so kind of an oddball subject of like I don't know if there's an actual way to calculate how much weight a single wrap can hold, because then also like you're using it in a controlled lowering manner, so it's falling for a second, gaining a whole bunch of force, you're catching it at some point, slowing it down over distance, so it's changing a bunch even in one situation. So yeah, I don't think there's like an actual number value per wrap.
That's why it's good practice to start small when you're rigging. Let your ground guys get a feel for the device and the setup and the friction that's in it. And then as you go and progress, the communication between the climber and the grounds team, right, they can adjust accordingly. Right, so always start off small and like super controlled in the first beginning of things. Let them get the feel for it, and then you can increase that, but make sure you maintain communication with the ground. Like, hey, this one's gonna be a little bigger than the next one. Maybe add an extra 1/2 wrap or a full wrap onto it. Was that piece too big? Was it too small? Get those brain juices going, so you guys, that communication's key in the rigging, just to help it flow a lot easier.
Vice versa. The guys talk to the
100%.
Yeah,
small one, they're
Yeah.
like, one rack, right?
yeah, I'll kind of get in the habit of like, especially with newer guys running ropes, just asking them like, how did that one feel? That one feel heavier than the last one? Did you put the same amount on there as the last one? Or did you throw on like a 1/2 wrap more? Or say, how did that one feel? And then I change up the system, set up a span rig, do the same thing, and then ask them again, so how much lighter was that one? And then now you can kind of get those brain juices flowing, thinking about it in different ways, just from doing it, thinking critically about every single piece that's coming out of there, because it's different every time, different foreman, different trees, different situations, different gear, but more or less a lot of the aspects of it are pretty similar.
I feel like something that's kind of helped as I've gotten used to rigging is like, obviously it doesn't work in every situation, but like just looking at that piece, like if you're on a live tree versus a dead tree,
Mm-hmm.
you can carry most dead pieces pretty.
Right. Imagine how much that thing would weigh if you were just throwing it in the chipper, and like
But like,
it might look big in the tree because I'm a short guy and I'm sending out a piece that's like 2 or 3 times as big as me, but then that thing gets on the ground and your guys are like one-handing it with the chipper. So like, and then like it looks gnarly, so you're throwing on 2 wraps on that thing and then locked off, and it's really not that heavy. So
but like for some things, like if I can carry a branch, if I can look up at it and know that I can carry it, it's probably either gonna need not even the horn or
yeah, or like maybe the horn, because it's still going to be falling and gaining a lot of force, so it's not going to be just like the static thing that you're lifting up. So that falling thing is very important, and that's why we use these like controlled lowering devices, because that just completely changes. Like you can pick up that branch, but can you catch that branch as it's falling on you? Probably not.
or like if you need like 2 people to carry a log that's about to get rigged out, maybe
Right.
2 wraps or
Yeah. So trees function the same way when they're in the air as when they're on the ground. So if getting like like comfortable with doing cuts and picking things up and knowing how a tree moves when it's on the ground. Same way it was when it's in the tree. So, more or less. But cool, I think that's pretty much it for today. Cool.
All right. Yep. Thank you, Professor Clark. Next week, we're going to dive a little deeper. We're going to break down each segment of the rigging principles that Professor Clark talked about, and then go from there.
Even though neither of us will be here next week.
That's true. Make Jacob do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't water my wine.